Wes Goldberg, cold open question for you before we get on to the Indiana Pacers being up 2-1 in the NBA Finals and look ahead to Game 4 a little bit. So the Knicks have basically the biggest thing we know about their coaching search right now, as a preface to this question, is that they've been calling other teams about their head coaches. So Ime Udoka, Quinn Snyder being the most recent addition to that list. I'm forgetting. I feel like I'm forgetting Jason Kidd being maybe the biggest.
Billy Donovan was out there.
Which is that it? All due respect to Billy Donovan, won a lot at Florida. Is that just like, hey, he's one of the coaches that hasn't been fired, so he's on the list? Like, that's just a process question. But I ask you this: if you were advising the Knicks here, and you were going to have them call about one other coach just to get shot down, who are you calling about?
That's a really good question. So they have not called about Eric Spoelstra, Steve Kerr, or weirdly, this was included, JJ Redick. That's okay.
I think there's three coaches that, like, I almost, when I thought about this question, which was 30 minutes before we started recording when I came up with this, to be clear, the three names that were for me that I think are immediate, like, you probably did call, but you know you're getting shot down, so they're not even, like, the fun answer here. It's Spo, Ty Lue, and Kerr. Those are the three. And none of those teams should let them go unless you're giving them, like, a bunch of money or picks. Which, like, that's not really worth it if you're the Knicks.
Yeah. I would call Portland about Chauncey Billups.
It's a good one. It's a good shout. I think he's really acquitted himself well in the last year, more than I thought.
I would call New Orleans about Willie Green. I actually think he's a good coach who's been giving kind of a lousy situation. And I would call Philly about Nick Nurse. And I'd go full Tim Robinson on that and just be like, you sure about that? Like, you sure you want to be stuck with Embiid and Paul George after this year? You sure about that? And see if he wants to come to New York.
Willie Green was not a name I had on my long list. Got to be honest with you.
I like Willie Green. I think he's really inventive offensively. I think he gets buy-in from players pretty right away. I might be a little biased because he was wonderful in Golden State while I was out there. And I think he's just gotten a pretty raw deal right now in New Orleans, and I think he's a good coach, and I'm a little worried that he's not going to last in New Orleans and not get another chance, but I would at least call. I don't know.
I think it's a good one. The name that I think that they would get a no on, that I think makes actually like a ton of sense from what I think their roster is going to need, would be Kenny Atkinson. They should get shut down on that, but like a guy who can empower Jalen Brunson and get more out of your other guards to get more offense out of your team, I think would make a ton of sense. But you're going to shut down there. The other name on there, and this is just because I, to your point, I have a bias with this guy, is like I would call about Jordy Fernandez. I just think he's going to be like a really good head coach, so why not try to get ahead of the curve and like put your finger on the dial on the scale.
Probably keep his apartment.
I mean, the amount of money. Well, I don't know Jordan as well. Do you think he's like? I always wonder this about NBA people in New York. It's like I assume like most of so the Knicks practice facility is like outside the city. So it's like, are they living outside the city? Are they living in like a penthouse in Manhattan? How many? Like I know Joe Harris was like famously like the Brooklyn guy, but how many guys are like, you know what? I live in Park Slope. You know.
Yeah, I think it's different with Brooklyn because the suburbs are a little bit closer and it's a little bit more space. You're not going to live you're not going to live near Madison Square Garden. There's nowhere to live there. So, that's interesting.
He probably could. Your answer is probably he could just keep his apartment.
You probably just keep the apartment, go over the bridge, call it a day.
I think my favorite answer you gave me is Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, call, see what's up.
It's at least someone with composure, and like I don't think would be too rattled by the New York of it all. I think Chris Finch was another name that they asked about.
That was.
So they just like hit all the coaches that they know are good, I think. Which, you know what? We've seen worse processes.
Who's the coach most insulted that he hasn't been called yet?
It's probably like one of the ones, the elite ones we talked about, that is like, I didn't even get a leak that you called. Like, I'm not even worth like you even trying. Stroke the ego a little bit.
Right. It's got to be Doc Rivers, right?
Well, I did see a post on Instagram being like the Bucks. It was a troll, but it was a very good troll of like they did like the fonts of a breaking news tweet. And it was like the Bucks offered Doc Rivers to the Knicks, and the Knicks said no. So it's like I think everyone but like the Bucks kind of understands what Doc Rivers is at this point. Respectfully, like You know, it's it's not what you want. Is there anyone with obvious Knicks connections that we just also missed? Like, is there
Probably.
yeah. Didn't call about Will Hardy, I guess.
No, he
Yeah.
just signed an extension.
Greatest
So,
coach in the league.
yep.
Job security for all right. On today's show, Pacers win Game 3. What did that tell us? Look ahead to Game 4. And with the Celtics in the news with guys potentially on the trade block, we're going to rank the guys teams should be calling to trade for this offseason. Whether they're getting shot down or not, we're going to rank those guys. Just Basketball Show. Chris Manning, Wes Goldberg. Let's go.
Spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Chris Manning, Wes Goldberg here on the Just Basketball Show, your twice-weekly show covering all things hoops. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, review on your podcast platform of choice. Hit the notification bell. Those things really, really help the show, help us find an even bigger audience. And Wes, we're as always powered by our friends at BetMGM.
That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball and you'll get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10. Place your first wager on any game, and you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, let's start with Game 3. And we're going to really think about Game 4, but I could be in the moment. I could just be buying the hype. I could just be buying into the Indiana of this all in a way that's maybe not the most helpful. But that was the exact kind of performance that made me kind of believe that I think they might actually do this. Because they forced a lot of turnovers. They dialed up the ball pressure. They responded like with the Mathurin thing as the avatar, but even how Obi Toppin, I think, made some big plays. And they navigated Nembhard being in foul trouble for a chunk of this game and not having him for stretches where I think he normally is on the floor. I was just really, really impressed by this Pacers performance. And the Thunder for the first, like they pointed on the broadcast, they were down 2-0 against Denver. This feels just like a little bit different because I wonder deep down if the Pacers like belief that they can do this is just maybe like 1 to 15 on that roster and the coaching staff just like a little bit deeper. But that was the exact kind of performance that I think we both were like, Thunder probably winning this anyway. That was the kind of performance that felt to me like, okay, maybe we're headed towards something actually long here one way or the other. It was such a good Pacers performance.
It was the first game in this series. Obviously, the Pacers are up 2-1, but it was the first game in this series where the Pacers were the better team from start to finish. Because they stole game 1, and congrats. They earned it, not to take anything away from them. But it was the first game this series where they were the better team from tip to buzzer. And they looked like the better team. They were more physical. They were more intentional. They were more... they executed at a higher level. They weren't as frazzled. And whatever happens for the rest of this series, the Pacers are a championship caliber team. You could talk to me about whatever their seeding was, their net rating, their blah, 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 this, whatever. You could tell me that they don't have a superstar. You could give me whatever reason you want. They're up 2-1 in the NBA Finals against one of the most dominant teams we've ever seen, according to any statistical analysis that you want to use. This Pacers team is really good, and they have transformed in front of us throughout the season. It wasn't long ago that this team they were under 500 after the first month of the season. Halliburton was nursing a weird, I think it was a leg injury earlier in the year, and he didn't look right. They have Naismith and Nembhard missed some time in the regular season, but ever since they got healthy and got into these playoffs, they have evolved in front of us. Defensively, they're better than they've ever been. Halliburton specifically is not a negative defensively the way that he used to be. Nembhard and Naismith they're ballers. TJ McConnell was built for this moment. He looks like a guy who's played in like 4 NBA finals, and that was his first. He's played in 3 NBA finals games in his career.
There was a clip going around of TJ McConnell that I saw. I think it's not a new clip. I think it's from like an interview he did with like Old Man and the 3 or something. But he was talking about how playing hard is like a skill. I don't believe everyone does it because you can't just do it as like an actual skill. I think the Pacers and like his effort in this game, I think it's just like proof of that because it felt like every time they needed him to do the T.J. McConnell pressure and get a steal thing, he did it, and it's just it wasn't anything. When he does it, it's not fancy. It is just like it is hustle and it is know-how and it is just like I'm gonna do this, and there's not anything you can do about it, even though you're more athletic than me and bigger than me and all these things. It's remarkable that he just was pulling that out in this game in a way that like the Thunder lost the turnover battle in an NBA game.
Yeah, and McConnell had 3 of those crazy steal the inbound plays.
Yeah.
And you see a team do that, I don't know, once or twice an entire season.
Yeah.
So for McConnell to force the Thunder to do it 3 times in a single game is remarkable. He was awesome. And they have so many guys who are just providing that kind of boost, whether it's him or Benedict Mathurin. You've got the Neesmith stretches, the Nembhard stretches, the Miles Turner stretches. I mean, not to even mention, what you're getting consistently from Halliburton and from Pascal Siakam, but they have these little like microwave guys who they'll just take over 3 to 4 minute stretches of a game. And the Thunder also have those guys, but those guys haven't really been doing that in these finals so far. And I just wonder about the composure part because we hear about how composed the Thunder are, but the reason they're down 2-1 right now is because they lost their composure at the end of game 1 and they could not execute defensively. I thought their defensive execution at the end of game 1 was trash. I thought they were really bad. They were just letting Nembhard get downhill in that pick and roll with Miles Turner. They seemingly they were frazzled by the fact that Halliburton was playing off the ball at the end of game 1. They're like, we don't even know you could do this. Defensively they were all over the place, and they allowed a bunch of threes. They allowed Nembhard to get into the paint, and that was it. I thought in game 3 they kind of lost the plot defensively or offensively rather. And you look at all the turnovers that they committed. 19 team turnovers in the game. They have not. I saw the stat at The Athletic. They have not turned the ball over more than 16 times in their last 18 playoff games prior to game 3. Offensively, they were a mess, and all the credit goes to the Pacers. They out-thundered the Thunder in game 3, but if you were one of these people who said, I think the Thunder are too young to get it done. I hear all of your great stats and your net ratings and all this stuff and 68 wins and your MVP and blah. I think they're too young to get it done. I never thought that to be true, and I'm still not sure it's true, right? I still think the Thunder can win this series, absolutely. But game 3, the first 3 games of this finals has been a win for you, if that's where you're standing on the youth corner there.
Gonna give you 2 stats, and then we can maybe go ahead to game 4 that I think kind of volume aside on these percentages, like their volumes were not from 3 like really really low frequency, and at the rim like below average frequency for Oklahoma City. Very mid range heavy game. This ended up being interestingly. The Thunder shot 83% at the rim according to Cleaning the Glass. They shot 47.6% from 3. Again, volume, particularly from 3, pretty low in a way that kind of explains some of this. And yeah, they lost a turnover battle in a big way. And the first time I can remember that happening in a long, long time. At least to an degree that it felt like it really tilted the game in favor of Indiana. But Wes, like I to win a game where you got outshot by the other team was 20+% more efficient at the rim and like 13% more efficient from 3. That's just kind of crazy. It speaks to just how to me at least, I'm having a hard time, even if I'm saying I'm optimistic about Indiana and what they might be able to do here. It just almost doesn't compute with the logical part of my brain. It's really just it's that it's happening is the thing that matters. But when I'm looking at numbers wise, it's just this is kind of bizarre. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around.
Yeah, the Pacers they're playing a great series, man. They really are, and they're throwing everything they've got at the Thunder, and I don't know. I wonder now if the Pacers really go on and win this thing, which has to be like they are real. Like we have to consider that like this is a wide open NBA Finals right now. This is a wide open Finals, and I still think if these two teams played 100 times, the Thunder probably beat the Pacers 65 to 70 times. But you don't play 100 times in the Finals; you play 7. And when Indiana went into Oklahoma City and stole Game 1, after the Thunder had outplayed the Pacers for 98% of that game, it put them in a situation where it put the Thunder in a situation where they kind of have to beat the Pacers 5 times out of 7 because they pretty much beat the Pacers in Game 1 and then let it slip away. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that they're that much better than Indiana. They might be, but I think, if you had gone into, right, you go into this final series and the spread was whatever it was, like minus 700, something crazy.
It was pretty, it was long.
Thunder.
It was really long.
Yeah.
For the Pacers.
For a best of 4 out of 7 series, right? But if you would have said the Thunder have to win 5 times and the Pacers have to win 4 times, what would the spread have been on the series then? It wouldn't have been minus 700 or whatever that number was.
I'm going to give you some odds after Game 3 here from our partners at BetMGM. Series odds right now. Thunder are still favorites, minus 250. Pacers at plus 200. The Thunder are 6.5 point favorites in Game 4. They were 5.5 for Game 3. Plus minus 225 to win outright. Plus 185 for Indiana. So like the Thunder still favored down 2-1, which I think does feel right, just based on their track record and all that. But it leads me to Game 4, Wes, and thinking about what we're going to see Friday. I feel like I don't even exactly know where to start if I'm thinking about how to like kind of map out what we're going to see here, because every game has felt kind of distinct in its own way. I just don't know if like there's anything I have on watching. I've watched a game. I watched the end of Game 1 twice, like the last 6 minutes twice. And I've not rewatched I just haven't had time to rewatch the other games yet. So I don't know. I've not identified that invisible string connecting through what is going on here exactly. It just felt to me a little bit like up and down a little bit. And the Game 2, I don't know what I could have picked up in Game 2 based on how Indiana played, really, right? And what's explaining why they're up 2-1. So when you're thinking about Game 4 and you're thinking about where we're going here, what's your first inclination? What are you going to be looking for here to see exactly where we're headed? Because this historically, with one exception, and as good as he's not LeBron in 2016, you're not winning if you're down 3-1 in the NBA Finals. So Oklahoma City needs this game. Indiana, on the same point, has a chance to really put their foot down here in a way that would be shocking, but incredible and really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what we were talking about with the Pacers going out of Game 2 and coming into Game 3. It was they got to play better. We're sort of at the point now where there's slight adjustments that you can make, but after 3 games against one team, the adjustments get really micro, right? And there is one major thing that the Thunder can still do, which we can talk about. But I look at that Game 3, and I did get a chance to rewatch a lot of the possessions this morning. And the thing that really stood out to me was how much they flummoxed Oklahoma City's offense, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in particular. In Game 2, the Thunder started setting their screens really high so that Shai can get downhill, but also play in space and just have that extra beat to make his reads. And he was phenomenal in Game 2, obviously. That was a masterpiece, right? But in Game 3, what Indiana started doing was, okay, well, we're gonna show a lot higher on those screens, but we're also gonna mix in some blitzes. We're gonna send 2 to the ball. We're gonna go over those screens and chase you into our help. And their help on the back end of it was really good, right? Like whether they were helping from the nail or whether some guy was coming over from the baseline, their help was spot on, and they were on a string. There was one. You never see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander turn the ball over via travel.
No.
That's just not a thing he does. And they got him for an obvious travel in the second half of that game when he came around. He came around to Lou Dort, I think, screen. Comes around that screen. Nembhard chases him over. I think you've got Miles Turner or Pascal. One of the bigs are kind of hedging over. And then Tyrese Halliburton gets in between Nembhard, or it's Nembhard on chasing Shai over the screen. and then Halliburton's right in front of Shea. And so as soon as Halliburton starts to make his move to get around, or as soon as Shea makes his move to try to get around Halliburton, Nembhard's able to fight back in front of Shea to get between Shea and the basket. I feel like I'm doing a terrible job explaining this.
No,
and then
you're doing
Halliburton, in that exact moment, kind of ditches Shea because Nembhard's come over and gotten back in position. Like Halliburton just releases off of Shea and then jumps into the passing lane where Lou Dort is behind Shea as the release valve. And he jumps into that passing lane, and before Shea even knows it, he's going to turn it back to pass it back to Dort, and Halliburton's just standing there in his passing lane. And he doesn't know what to do, and he kind of just fumbles the ball and stumbles backwards, and he gets called for a travel. So it's that sort of thing that's like, wait, that's what the Thunder do to people. Is that, what did Anthony Edwards say? 5 puppets on a string?
Yeah, something like that.
And that was the Pacers in Game 3. They just executed at such a high level, and the Thunder didn't. And the Thunder, I think, are capable. Obviously, they're capable of executing at that level, but they got to do it for 48 minutes. They have to. This is not one of those instances where it just felt like all the time the Thunder could just sort of do their thing and then turn it on in the third quarter or the fourth quarter and beat whoever they were playing, with the exception of Denver. Felt like they were really tested against that Denver team. But this Pacers team is as good, if not better, than that Denver team. Like, they are not going to be able to just flip on the switch.
They're
and
deeper.
Take over
I mean,
a game
at the
anymore.
very least, they're deeper.
Yeah.
Like,
and so they don't have
the-
their bench outscored
Yeah.
Oklahoma City's in Game 3. Like, they're going to come at you in waves just like Oklahoma City can. So they got to play 48 really strong minutes.
The Obi Toppin equivalent on the Nuggets was not having minutes of success in making important plays in the way Obi Toppin is for Indiana. Is like maybe the most succinct way I can kind of summarize this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think what I find really fascinating about this, Wes, and everything you're saying is like the Pacers like forcing Oklahoma City into playing the way they are. The Thunder's like whole thing, if we're gonna like maybe I'm gonna oversimplify it to some degree for the sake of the point, is control, right? Like, it is defensive control, and it is forcing turnovers so you're in control in transition, and then you don't turn the ball over. I cannot think of watching them like in high leverage regular season games in the earlier part of the playoffs. Like, I can't remember a game where they felt as careless as they did in Game 3. And then SGA is talking about, like, okay, fatigue, all this stuff. Like, part of me is like, there's something there where I'm like, are they hitting like a wall that they haven't hit before and don't know how to go through it? Where Indiana, like, I don't think they believe that there is a wall. I think they just believe that like they just gotta keep moving and it'll work.
No,
you know what I mean?
That's really interesting, right? Because they played at a really high level all regular season long, and they have not gone this far ever in the postseason.
No.
And even and Indiana hasn't necessarily either as a team, but at least
No,
they made the
and-
Eastern Conference Finals last year.
Well,
Like,
but
Oklahoma City didn't even make it that far.
Yeah, but even that point, it's like Benedict Mathurin has never played in a game as big as of his life. He's in Game 3 and you look like he'd been in the last like 4 NBA Finals or had been on like a part of playoff teams for 5 years, based on how he played with confidence in that last game. Like, that was crazy the way Mathurin came out and was just like,
But
run it.
Some
and
of this
rev it.
is just role players at home because Aaron
Which
Wiggins
is the
had the
thing.
big game in Game 2.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god! And then he's a no-show in Game 3 in Indiana. So
I do want to highlight something about that, actually. I was watching.
Yes.
When the game ends, you and I have never talked about this. So on a podcast is maybe the best place to do it. When a game ends, a game you're not covering, right? Like, so you're at home, you're watching. And it's a big national game. Do you still watch the post-game stuff? Like, not the interviews, like the studio.
Sometimes I did after Game 3.
So
I don't always. I don't have a system.
I don't either. I usually like kind of depending on who's on there. I frankly do opt out more than not, and just like I'll look at Reddit. I'll look at something I can read as I'm taking notes. But I thought JB Bickerstaff, the Pistons head coach, former Cavs head coach, former Grizzlies head coach, former Rockets head coach, obviously like son of an NBA lifer, who's been around the game forever. He gave like the best explanation I think I've ever heard about why role players play better at home, and it was just like basically comes down to consistency. You get to nap because NBA players love naps. You at your normal time. You get to sleep in your own bed. Your meals are going to be more consistent. Your shoot-around time is at a place you're really used to with the best amenities and in a really normal function. Like, everything is just like more stable. And like on a very basic human level, that just like really clicked in my head as a way of explaining that phenomenon of like Mathurin just looking super comfortable because he's like at home. And then that crowd in particular was awesome. Like I loved the cuts to Reggie Miller with Halliburton after the game. That just felt like an arena that I would have wanted to feel what that was like in the moment. It was incredible. I think that's like in it to this point. It's like Indiana doesn't have like a ton more experience than OKC. Like, we didn't get OKC going up against like Boston, who's like been there and done all that. Right? Like we're going to see like these are two first-time finals teams.
Right.
But Indiana like has had a little more. They already have this kind of irrational self-belief, and like the series might break in a way where they're at home for the most important games of the series after they won game one the way they did. It might just like break that way to some degree and give them a huge advantage. That's hard to overcome. Sometimes it can just be like human like that, I think. As much as we think about play style, it's just like that might be part of the story here.
Yeah. And I think it's, I think it's fair to point out Rick Carlisle has coached in champions in the NBA Finals. Mark Daigneault hasn't. Pascal Siakam has won a championship.
Yeah.
He's a key player on this Thunder team, or on this Pacers team, and the Thunder don't really kind of have that guy.
They talk about James Johnson as like a huge piece of this team. There's not anyone like that on the Thunder roster to be like that, like vet. Like Caruso has won a championship, been there before.
That would be the closest guy.
That's the closest, but I don't, for whatever reason, I don't think of him exactly as like that kind of anchor in the way that I look at like James Johnson as being, right? Like I think those are.
Yeah, I think that's more of a branding thing because Caruso plays and makes an impact on the court.
I will readily admit that I am also like a sucker. There's certain NBA things I think we all like get attached to. I'm a sucker for having the OG veteran on your roster to be like your rock. Like I loved.
Hey man, preaching to the choir.
So yeah, like I loved Udonis Haslem, and it's like I do after talking to guys about this when I was covering the Cavs. There is like people like just hire him as an assistant coach. There's a huge difference that once you go into the other set of offices and are not changing with the guys in the locker room, practicing with them, it is a different relationship than a guy in the locker room.
We've all had jobs where your coworker gets promoted.
Yeah.
And you don't have the same relationship with that coworker anymore, right?
James Johnson is the 30-year like veteran of the steel mill that has never like gotten into management, but it's like that guy knows the whole business better than anyone above him.
In a past life, when I used to work in sales in the Bay Area before I got into this, I had a guy on my team. I was in sales in the Bay Area, and so I had the 680 corridor, which is just east of Oakland, and then my teammate had Oakland. Yeah. And he had been in Oakland for ever. Like that guy had been in Oakland for like 15 years, and it's literally an entry-level job. I got it out of college. This guy had been there forever. Yeah. And everybody's like, "Do you want to move? Do you want to move?" He's like, "Nope, I'm good. I got it. I know everybody in my territory. I have all my relationships that I need. Nobody else is moving around. I'm not moving around." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And that was it. And he never really accomplished anything at the company. He just had the job, got the paycheck. And everybody on the team loved him.
That isn't but that is like that is. We're not gonna go into like a socio-political like thing here, Wes, but like that is almost like that to me is like a success. Like understanding your role is like a superpower. I think in life, it's a superpower in the NBA.
And then during the big moments in the year, like the big parts of the sales calendar, everybody with these big accounts would rely on Oakland guy to help pull him through, right?
Yeah.
And so he knew his place. And James Johnson hasn't. He carries himself like he's won multiple championships. He's never won a championship.
Yeah.
And yet he's just been around so long that people just keep going to him. He's established himself as that vet. So I don't know if the metaphor necessarily worked. Anyway,
I think it does. You sold me. We're in alignment.
Very good.
Yeah.
So who's back to adjustments?
Yeah. So I think the Thunder are the biggest. I just looked this up. The Thunder are the biggest road favorite in an NBA Finals game in 35 years.
What's the spread? 6?
6.5.
6.5.
Usually these things are very lean. Kind of surprised me the Warrior. This was like from a CBS.
I don't know how you would bet on the spread in this series.
No,
honestly. It's money line or bust on this.
I might do it after we get off. I almost after game 2 I was like I'm gonna throw 10 on the Pacers to win this.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna do it now, and at least it's still plus money before like.
What is it now? Do you have it in front of you?
It's plus. They're plus 200 to win the series. Okay,
that deserves a sprinkle. I already hedged. I had Thunder in 5. I hedged with a Thunder in 6, so I'm pretty safe there. But I might I might chase with the with that Pacers.
I've not
win.
placed any other bets on the series. Everything else just didn't feel like worth.
I feel like I can't bet on a game-to-game basis.
I would
if you
be
do,
losing my
please
mind.
use the code JustBasketball.
Please help us.
I don't know what to expect.
Like I think we're gonna know in the first 6 minutes, honestly. Like, and that's over reductive. But it's like if OKC comes out and it looks like it's turning the ball over again.
Okay,
I think
so that gets me to my adjustment.
I think Indiana's winning the game.
Adjustment for Game 4. Key adjustment. After we were watching Game 3, simple pass. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, simple pass. There was a number of times where I think he saw way too many bodies and ignored Jalen Williams hanging out to his left to try some sort of skip pass to the opposite corner. That got picked off by TJ McConnell. One got picked off by Tyrese Halliburton. I think he got frazzled because he saw so many bodies and because the pressure started so early in the clock that he just sort of lost the plot offensively. Simple pass is what, if I'm Mark Daigneault, that's what I'm telling Shai. Simple pass. And I was kind of going through some of the quotes and stuff from the media sessions today, and they're kind of just talking about like control the things we can control. It's a 7-game series. Like, we'll be back, whatever. All these things, we got to be ourselves, play to our strengths, all that stuff. It's a lot of nothing, but at the same time, I think it's right. I just try not to get frazzled. Try to just make the right play every play.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're the more talented team, and you should win. But I think there's a major adjustment that we need to talk about.
Please.
And I don't know that they're necessarily going to do it, but I think it's fair to wonder if they should. Is it time to go back to the original starting lineup of Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein? Do they need to go back to it? They have been, with Chet and Hartenstein on the court, they're a +7 in 10 minutes this series. We saw that lineup give them a boost in Game 2, not so much in Game 3. Mark Daigneault also, after Game 1, experimenting with no center lineups, hasn't gone back to it. And then we saw Indiana in Game 3 experiment with Pascal Siakam at the 5. It feels like Daigneault's been chasing the lineup thing this entire time. And I don't think Daigneault has been 100% confident in his lineup decisions. Like, if you give him truth serum, like, sober moment, hey, going into every game, did you feel 100% about every decision you made lineup-wise? And I bet you, if you get him to say something honest, it would be no. After Game 1, I feel like I kind of got behind on this stuff. It just feels like he's been chasing the adjustments, and Rick Carlisle's been in front of him ever since, where Daigneault tried to get in front of it, and I think it kind of backfired on him. So do you just go back to square one and say, you know what, let's just start Chet and Isaiah, normal starting lineup. Casey Wallace goes back to the bench. He's not been super impactful. I don't think Casey Wallace is giving you a reason that you compel to start him. Do you switch it up? Do you go back to square one?
I would. Yeah. I think I would. I don't even think it's that. I would have done it after Game 1, even though they should have won that game. I think I would have done it after Game 1. I didn't love how the Casey Wallace stuff looked. I think the Hartenstein, to your point about the simple Shai pass.
Yeah.
The easiest way to get Shai really easy passes against his Indian defense is to use Hartenstein as a screener.
Mm-hmm.
Chet has more utility as a 5. Like, in a vacuum, Chet is more useful as a 5 because he will space, and you can be a little more creative with his utility in an offense, and he can give you that pick and pop. It gives you you're more stretched out. And I get that is the default impulse of the modern NBA. Hartenstein is you put him in, he's going to screen, he's going to roll, he's going to give you those nice little passes at times where he's at the elbow, he gets the pass on a short roll, and he flings it to a cutter. He gives you just a little more room to create easy looks. And for Shai in particular, or for Jalen Williams if he's on a pick and roll or whomever, the easy dump-off pass to Hartenstein where he's either passing into somebody else, maybe gets a look at the rim, it's a safety valve. It's like play action. It feels like the best equivalent we have to play action pass in football is having the big who can catch and set a screen for you. I think he should.
It's a great call, right?
He should start, and they should play 15 minutes together in the game. I think.
And then just Steve Hartenstein's their best screener. To your point, that loosens things up for Shai. He's also just big, right? Just a big target. To use your quarterback or your football metaphor, quarterbacks love big targets, right? Yeah. And Isaiah Hartenstein is that easy post entry pass, easy pass to the free throw line where Hartenstein has that little floater game.
I also
think
kind of
you need
want to. I also kind of want to see them unleash Caruso a little bit defensively, like lean into the McConnell part of it, and just kind of maybe he should just be pressuring Halliburton every minute he's on the floor.
So Casey Wallace has the worst plus minus in total of any player on the Thunder in these finals. He's a minus 14 in his minutes through 3 games. Worst mark on the Thunder.
And he's to be clear, he's a 21-year-old second-year NBA player.
It was too
So, like,
much, man.
yeah.
It was too much to put on. Like when we talk about youth, like that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Shea or or Caruso or Hartenstein.
Or even Jalen Williams, who's been like,
Maybe a little bit Jalen Williams because he's been so up and down.
yeah, but
for
I
2
mean,
playoffs.
For I will just say for him in Game 3, 36 minutes, 9 of 18, got to the line 11 times.
Yeah, he was good.
He was great in Game 3. To where like I'm worried about Kason Wallace. I'm not worried about J-Dub as much.
I also was talking with Mo DeKill for another podcast, and he made this great point. So I don't want to steal it.
Plug the pod.
Real GM Radio.
There you go.
And he made this great point, so I don't want to steal it from him. That's why I'm giving him credit here. But Chet just looks so much more comfortable playing with another big.
Yeah.
Even into your point, Chris, like with the utility, you obviously want Chet as a 5 for a lot of minutes because he spaces the floor and all the things that you're talking about. But just him personally, he looks more comfortable playing with a true 5 so that he doesn't have to do all the banging of the bodies, boxing out, all that stuff all the time. I think it's time. I think you got to go back to the starting 5. I thought it would have been too soon to do it after Game 1. I thought it would have just showed too much weakness from Mark Daigneault and could have shooken the confidence of the locker room. But you're down 2-1. You gave it the old college try. And I think you just go to Cason Wallace and say, "Hey, buddy, you know what? We're gonna bench you. We're going back to the original starting 5. Let's give that a shot." I like what and you could frame it as you guys have played so much better than I anticipated through 3 games. You've deserved a chance or whatever. I'm not going to tell Daigneault how to coach necessarily, but I think you got to go back to that. And then honestly, if you do go back to that and you take Cason Wallace out of the starting lineup, I don't know that he plays in the finals. I think you get to that's sort of the second layer of that adjustment is if you're the Thunder, you get to shorten your bench a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And redistribute some of those minutes to Caruso, to Aaron Wiggins, who's been good in this series, to guys like that. Because I don't know that you need the Wallace minutes.
No, I mean I don't even like he only played 2 minutes, but one of the things in Game 3 that really struck me was like the 2 minutes Kenrich Williams played, he took like a pull-up 3. Like their whole set was like he got the ball at the top of the key. Didn't make a pass. He just shot a 3. I just limit any of that at this point. Like this is the time of the year where like you kind of have to be ruthless. Like get it down to 8 guys. Mm-hmm. Simplify what you're doing. Lean into your strengths and your advantages, and just go win the damn thing. Like at a certain point, it's like okay, if Cason Wallace, maybe he doesn't play. Maybe you don't cut him out entirely. Maybe he plays. Maybe you bench him at the starting line. And he plays 10 minutes. Okay, that is a reasonable thing to do here.
Yeah.
The
Pacers are targeting him
Yeah.
when he's on the court with Siakam. They're getting that switch from the very first possession of these finals. They said, "That's what you're going to do? Okay, we're going to get that switch that we want. We're going to get Siakam posted up on him." And they've been doing it every single game. It's what we talked about going into these finals in terms of the Thunder just don't have a soft spot that you can poke at. Siakam versus Wallace has been a soft spot, and if I'm Daigneault, you've got to eliminate it. You've just got to expunge it from the equation.
Yeah, I might just play like he was minus 15 in Game 3. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's obviously always been kind of a limited how many shots does he really want to take guy. Might just play him 36 minutes just because he's not. You can't hunt that.
You're talking
guy.
about Caruso?
Yeah, I'm talking about Caruso. You can't hunt Caruso. If you put him on the floor, and Siakam is facing up against him or posting against him, the Thunder are totally fine with that.
Okay, so let's rethink this then. You and I think we agree. So I guess there's no point in having this conversation, but let's have it anyway.
I think we just, even though I think Wes think we agreed here, I think we just had like what is the reasonable like discussion about this, right? Like I think we got to the same point. Just maybe like we had to talk. This is like when you have an actually productive meeting. We're just happen to be doing it on a microphone.
Instead of going back to the 2 big lineup, is there another lineup that they can do if Daigneault is this committed to playing one center at a time? Take Cason Wallace out because you're going to start Dort. He's too important. Jalen Williams, Shea, obviously. I don't think you're going to swap Chet for Hartenstein. I think if you're going to do that, you're going to just play them together.
That would be weird if you did that.
I'm
picking the Pacers to run away. Yeah, it'd be weird.
Yeah. So could you go Caruso for Wallace?
You lose the spacing part of it is like where even though
Right.
like Wallace is just a more willing shooter, even if he hasn't been like a effective offensive player so much in this series, like he's faster and he's more willing to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the only move is Hartenstein. I think
You can't go Isaiah Joe.
nope, you can't go Wiggins.
Defensively, that's too hard. Wiggins doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
I think you just go Hartenstein. He plays 25 minutes. He played 18 in this game.
Yeah, Hartenstein's minutes have gone down the last 3 rounds. So he played 20-plus minutes in the first round against Memphis, and that was just kind of because there was a lot of blowouts. They didn't need him.
Yeah.
27 minutes against Denver makes sense. 19.8 minutes in the conference finals, down to 19 minutes per game on average in the finals. So those minutes are going down, and I think if he's been good in this series when he's been out there.
Yeah.
So.
I think you start him. He plays 25 minutes. You play Caruso between 32 and 36. And your main 6 guys are your 5 starters, Hartenstein in for Wallace and Caruso. And then you have to probably spot pick the right guy for the rest of those minutes, the right 2 to 3 guys for the rest of those minutes.
Mm-hmm. Could be a hot hand thing. Just okay.
It's like, hey, is Wallace shooting well tonight? Great.
Yep.
Did Wiggins get free? Like whatever it is. I think that's the way you have to play this, which I think if we're in this spot, and I think the Thunder probably do win this game, like ultimately the favorites for a reason. That is another area where like I trust Carlisle to figure that out more than I do Dagnall. Like this is kind of like what he's done this series. Like he's kind of known when to like Ben Shepherd was a guy I didn't think would like maybe need to play. He played 18. Like he didn't like his stats don't look crazy. He was like a competent player on the floor and holding up defensively for those 18 minutes. And Carlisle like knew how to empower him in the right spots.
Yeah, I thought he was really good on Shea in his minutes.
Yeah, and like that was a game where like to this point, Nembhard got in foul trouble. They had to have other options to throw at Shea. Nembhard was up for it. Dagnall has to be able to make those same calls, I think, if they're going to win this series. That's where we're at.
Yep.
Are you leaning OKC to win the game?
To win the game, yes. I just think these teams are even enough that it being 2-2 going into game 5 feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels right. I think we're going 6 or 7, though. I think it's where we're headed, barring OKC.
Bring it on, man. I'll take 7 of these. These are great.
It's been a great
best finals since 2022, certainly. Golden
Yeah,
State Boston was pretty good.
And then before that, it was probably I need to look at the fullest finals. My brain goes back to like 15 or 16.
Yeah, 16 was obviously 15 and 16 were very dramatic. 15 wasn't that great. People forget that everybody in the Cavs got hurt.
Kyrie's knee just like exploded in game 1, and Love was out.
Yeah, so it was like a lot of Matthew Dellavedova.
Hey now,
uh,
legend.
22 I thought was good. 21 Milwaukee Phoenix, that was good. It was good. It was a weird good because Phoenix went up 2-0 and then Milwaukee came back.
Hasn't aged well for either of those teams. But did have.
But it was a fun finals.
I think did have the most dramatic play I've seen like in the last like 10 years, which is the Drew Holiday alley-oop to Giannis.
Yeah.
I think that's the craziest thing I've seen people attempt and succeed in the finals in the last 10 years, except for the Halliburton shot in game 1.
These finals, regardless of market, TV ratings, whatever, way better than the 2023 finals, way better than the 2024 finals. These are actually entertaining games. So.
Yeah. This is more competitive than last year. It's more this would be, if this goes at least 6, it's the first I mean, it doesn't feel like that long, but it'd be the first finals since the 2022 finals. So 2 full years where we had 5-game sweeps.
Yeah.
The whole point of this is we want really competitive basketball, and we've had, for the most part, it's been 6 has been the number. Like, we haven't had a 7-game, if I'm looking at this correctly in Wikipedia.
Haven't had 7 games since 2016.
Which is, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. That's almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I can't wait. I'll be watching this in a bar with a friend who's in town from LA.
Ooh, Friday night?
Friday
Game
night,
4?
yeah.
Good for you. That sounds actually like a good idea.
We're going to go to an Irish bar. I'm going to split a G, and I'm going to watch this game.
You're going to split a G?
Are you a Guinness?
That's the Guinness thing. Got it.
Are you a Guinness guy?
I am not. Not for any particular reason.
To be fair, doesn't strike me as like a beer I would like really. As a Guinness lover, I will drink a Guinness just about anywhere.
It's not a Miami beer.
It's not a Miami. I can't imagine being in South Beach being, you know what sounds great as I'm like looking at the ocean? A Guinness.
It's a lot of Modelo down here.
which also great.
Yeah.
Top both of
I'm
my
a
top.
water. You
top
know
three
me. I'm a
beers.
water beer guy.
Yeah.
The more it tastes like water, the better. The Miller Lights, the Mick Ultras.
Yeah, we're yeah. That's
where I'm at.
Yeah, we're in alignment. You can lose me with your hops.
I don't need your hops. I don't need it to taste like a cactus or something. Does have to be infused with mango. I'm good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Just let me crush beer.
Yep.
That's the move. All right, let's talk about the Boston Celtics. Are you a Sam Adams guy?
Am I a Sam Adams guy? No.
Can't say
I'm
I've
not.
had one.
I just
Yeah.
it's not. It's you know.
You hate Boston. It's okay.
I hate Boston. Yeah. Thank you.
okay.
You could say it for me.
Yeah, that's right. So Shams Charania has reported that the Celtics are getting calls and will get calls about basically everyone on their roster.
Okay.
We've long thought, I think, that the guys they would move on from were Porzingis and Holiday most notably, right? Mm-hmm. But it seems like they're going to get calls on Derek White, Jalen, basically everyone.
You're gonna get calls on everybody.
And I bet you even Tatum, but I'm assuming Tatum is just like entirely off the board, and
Right.
also
Let's
like
take
hard
him
to
off.
trade for a guy off on Achilles tear. Like even if you know he's gonna come, think he's gonna come back, all that stuff. Wes, I think I could be galaxy braiding this, but I think just considering the cost, like I think they would take a crazy offer to get any of these guys. Like Boston should play crazy hardball on the White and Brown more so than Holiday and Porzingis. Like they're going to be much more willing to move on with the latter guys. And the
I think
guys.
I think other teams are gonna play hardball on Holiday and Porzingis. Those are not easy. Look,
No. Holiday
we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Holiday in particular is like
Yeah.
that's really hard to trade for.
It's a bad contract. You're not allowed to say anything bad about Drew Holiday or the Holiday family. I get that. It's a horrible contract. The guy's 34 years old, getting paid $30+ million for the next 3 years. It's a bad contract. They might have to give up draft capital, like first-round picks and stuff, to get off that contract. I don't know. Maybe I might be overreacting to it, but there's not a long list of teams where that makes a ton of sense.
The first name I think I'm calling for that on this list, and it's
Can
not. Go ahead.
I
Please.
propose something?
Yeah.
Let's do this as a draft.
Oh, okay.
Just like a quick draft. So you get the first pick.
Well, do you want
You're
to
a
flip
GM.
You want to flip a coin?
First name. No, you get the first
All
pick.
right, that's fine. All right.
Because you already had somebody in mind.
Yeah, I'm taking Derek White.
Yeah.
I'm not even like Jaylen Brown is a better player. I want to be clear about that.
Sometimes.
But if I'm thinking about a guy that could help my team level up, that would fit basically like most every team that has a great skill set that can like just do a bunch of different things for me, and I don't have to like rejigger necessarily what I'm doing to fit him in. I'm just getting Derek White. Like the Orlando Magic should be like, do you want Jalen Suggs and a pick for Derek White?
Mm-hmm.
And like I think they're better off, even if they're somewhat similar, with Derek White in the short term than they are Jalen Suggs. And
Yeah, I think the idea with Jalen Suggs is that he turns into something like Derek White.
yeah, he's got to shave the head. I'm fully just want to emphasize this point again. I've said it. I think it's my most repeated take on this show. Jalen Suggs will be 10% better if he just embraces that he's bald and shaves his head.
You're probably right.
I am right. Derek White shaved his head, and look what happened.
Derek White is 30 years old,
Yep.
which is fine. He's making 26, 28 and a half, 30 and a half, 32 and a half over the next 4 years. That last year is a player option. So he'll probably opt out of that and go back into the market. So you've got him at basically 30 and a half mil or less for the next 3 years. That's an awesome contract. And to your point, whoever your main guy is in your backcourt, he fits. If you don't have a main guy in your backcourt, great. He can be that. He's awesome. He's a really good player. And he's one of those players that also feels like he could probably do a little bit more if you needed him to. And oftentimes he does, right? When Boston needs him to in those games where Tatum or Jaylen Brown are out or resting or whatever, he often does step up. So I think it's a good pick. I'll go Jaylen Brown with my second pick. Finals MVP, does a lot of things that very few players can do. I think his physicality is through the roof. I'd be a little worried if I were trading for him to be my number one guy because he still can't dribble that good. But he's a good player. And if I felt like I had a number one ball handling option, I'd feel really good about Jaylen Brown being my number two. Like if I had a Halliburton, I'd feel really good about Jaylen Brown being my Siakam.
Hawks have long, I think, been rumored as like a Jaylen Brown team. They should put together like maybe you try to keep. Like I think you're not trading Jalen Johnson in this trade.
Can't.
But it's like everything you go. If you came in next year with Jaylen Brown, Trey, and Jalen Johnson, I'm more excited about where I'm at than where I'm at now. Even if I like where Reese Shea was as a rookie.
Would you give up Dyson Daniels?
No.
Yeah, so it's that. So you're not getting it done. I mean, I would throw Rizichet in there, and I'm not sure Boston's like, super.
It's the
psyched about
the
that,
advantage
but-
of Rizichet is that he's cheap and you get to develop him.
Right, but he's also 7 years younger than Tatum. I wouldn't do it if I were Boston. But yeah, I think Atlanta. There's a bunch of teams that Jaylen Brown makes sense for. I mean, Detroit,
Houston.
Houston doesn't feel like it.
Houston's just gonna. I'm throwing Houston there, not necessarily that I agree with it. That I just think they're gonna try to do something like that. And it might be Durant. It might still be trying to call up Giannis, but I don't. I think they're doing something this summer that's gonna feel big. I don't know what it is, but like that, this would qualify as big.
Memphis
Memphis would be great. I think Memphis
Desmond
would
Bane and some stuff.
mix it. And I think Boston could talk itself into that too.
Mm-hmm.
Bane playing off of Tatum as your next step forward, and he's a little cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Could do worse.
Who's your next pick?
Holiday, and it's the contract is crazy. I just think he's going to age better than Porzingis. Porzingis could be out of the league in a year and a half, and I'd be like, yeah.
My favorite Holiday landing spot. Sacramento.
They were. It wasn't like a tier 1 leak on this, but they were linked to wanting a point guard this week, and Darius Garland and Trae Young being at the list.
Boston would ask for Keegan Murray, they would say no.
They don't have anything else is the problem.
Would you take DeMar DeRozan for a 1-year rental, understanding that Tatum's probably going to miss the year? Just be like, we need some scoring.
It is just the most like anti this era of the Celtics player that you could. It's like,
which is why it feels like it would be weird, and then you'd be like, you know what? I do kind of see the reason why they would do this.
it'd be great for kids at festivals in college who have like a random DeMar DeRozan Celtics jersey in 6 years.
That feels like a really specific thing.
Do you not
related
have
to a specific thing that happened to you?
Well, no. This is a
Festival
thing.
in college.
Well, I did go to a party school, but like if you go to like house parties in college, this was like a thing for me in there, and I still see like you'll see videos on Instagram sometimes.
And you went to
Ohio University. Ohio.
Don't.
If you're gonna say I went to Ohio State, I was gonna hang up this.
No, but it's the University of Ohio or Ohio University.
It's Ohio University. Yeah. The
Go
like
Bobcats.
if you went to like that's right. Put some respect on the name. If you went to like a house party, it was like most of the like I would say frat bro adjacent, but it was like a lot of guys wearing like old like NBA jerseys they got from China, and like DeMar DeRozan Celtics jersey would be like a layup for like that's a great jersey.
Was the number one jersey you encountered some Vince Carter jersey?
It was like Vince Carter.
Oh, you were also in Ohio, so it's probably a lot of LeBron.
Well, nah, it depends. But it was like you had 8 era Kobe.
Yeah.
And then Zlatan, like the European soccer player, his PSG jersey.
But
to this point, though, I don't hate if Boston's goal next year is to tread water. DeRozan's like pretty good way to just tread water for a year.
yeah, if you could get DeRozan and like Keon Ellis,
And he tries stuff out for a year and say, hey, we need to diversify. Like we take some mid-range shots.
yeah, right? Like exactly. It would be a little weird, but again, like I don't know what the market for Drew Holiday is realistically going to be. You've heard Detroit involved. Like that doesn't really make a ton of sense for me if I'm the Pistons.
But it feels aligned to what the Pistons have done the last couple of years. Is what I would say to that, right? Like they've been very veteran heavy. They kind of are in a point now where like a lot of those guys are under a contract forever. They're not necessarily have like a next generation coming up ready to take those spots. Drew playing off of Cade would make you better next year, which I think is probably their first goal.
Can I give you another Drew Holiday trade?
Please.
To Charlotte, reunite with Charles Lee. Charlotte feels like they need an adult in the room.
They need more than one adult in the room.
And here's my favorite part about it.
Are you trading LaMelo to the Celtics?
I am not.
Oh, man.
Josh Green, nice little bit role player,
Yeah.
good salary filler. And our old friend Grant Williams
Oh,
goes back to Boston.
the homecoming. I think Tatum might request a trade if you did that.
That's true. The other version of this is just Miles Bridges for Drew Holiday straight up.
But that's another diversification play. Maybe the whole move of this is you diversify the roster and try stuff out for a year.
Yeah, I don't think that's what they want to do though.
It doesn't. I don't think most teams want to do that, but sometimes I smart. So would Porzingis be your 4? Your
No.
pick here?
No.
Okay. Would you have gone Holiday at 3?
No.
Okay.
Well, like, are we just allowed to pick anybody?
Well, it's like I think anyone who's
Tatum,
under
right?
contract, but yeah. everyone
Okay,
but
yeah,
Tatum.
okay. So I would have went Pritchard, the next one.
Yeah.
They're not going to trade him, but I would have. Like if I'm a GM calling, like, hey, you're trying to shave $7 million, I'll give you. I don't know what it would cost. Like here's 2 highly protected, sort of okay first-round picks. I don't know.
Dalton
one good first-round pick.
Dalton
and an
Connect
okay
and
one.
like the 2031 pick for Pritchard.
Is Peyton Pritchard and Austin Reeves allowed to be on the same team?
Probably not.
If it's not in Boston, I should say.
Yeah.
No, if I were Peyton Pritchard, that would be my next pick. I don't think I have to explain that.
He would be good anywhere, I think, is where I'm at with him.
Yeah, as a 6th man, my only problem with Pritchard is at what point does he want more? And at that point, you start having questions. But he's making $7 million a year as a 6th man, 27 years old. Perfect.
Wolves for him could be good.
I
don't know how you
like him
do
on the
it.
Wolves.
I don't know how you do it, but I think that could work.
Yeah, you would have to do like a. Is it like
Wolves
Dillingham for Pritchard? Like that doesn't seem like anybody would want to do that. Neither team would want to do that.
No. Yeah. Okay, so if we're looking at the rest of the list now.
You can take Porzingis here.
I don't think it's like a bad idea. This is where like I like
It's a 1-year deal.
Yeah, I think the question is like how many teams are is it worth like the risk? And there's a lot of upside, I think, if he has like he plays 55 games and is a playoff impact guy for you. Does that help you in a real way? I think the question is like what's the right situation? Like I could see the Clippers being like a Porzingis team for a year. I know they have Zubac, but it's like I think they're going to do something. Like they'd be a team that I think will probably call by Jaylen Brown. I think they've been like mentioned. No, they're not. I don't think on that list that Chomps put out, but they've been a Durant team to me. Suns, like if they could move, if could find a way to sneak that back in. Like I think there's a team. There's got to be a team that feels like there's a risk that it's worth it to run with Porzingis for a year. Maybe the Pistons even. I think the Pistons like on the board for like anything. It feels like. But I would go
New Orleans for CJ McCollum straight up. Both are expiring contracts. Boston's not saving money, but they're getting some scoring.
Yeah, and you need to eat ball handling for you with no Tatum.
I can't do that though.
No,
that's the hard part with Porzingis. It's
almost like need to dump him somewhere, which is not
right. It's like how many first-round picks is this going to take, Brooklyn?
Time Lord for Porzingis.
Can I give you my next pick?
Yeah.
I'll go Hauser next.
Yeah.
3-point shooter off the bench, $10 million. It's fine.
That's kind of. Then we're getting into. It's like I don't even. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
I think
like,
the draft is over.
Yeah, but I
Name is Keita. Like
Baylor Shireman.
Yeah.
Tillman, Jordan Walsh. Yeah, it's Porzingis. I'm gonna guess will be the hardest one for them to trade, just because I think you can't. It's like there's so much more noise on the injuries, and like Holiday, you can just tell yourself we need to make this work for 2 years, or we're a rebuilding team that needs a culture setter. Porzingis, it's just like, are you even getting him where he's actually able to run and make an impact?
And it's you'd think it'd be easy to get off of Porzingis because the contract is expiring, but usually you can get off of an expiring contract and then maybe bring like a longer term contract back, or it's a useful player that you're getting rid of for a year. But in Boston's case, they're not just trying to get off of a useful player, they're trying to get off the money. And so if you're trying to get off the money, you can't really bring any long-term money back in exchange for that expiring contract. So neither team involved in a Porzingis deal feels like it's getting cap relief in that situation. So Porzingis is going to be really tough. Unless there's a team out there that's just like, yeah, we think we can get a good Porzingis here, which maybe he does tend to average like, every other year kind of stuff. So I don't know. Every Boston fan I know is like, oh no, we're just going to trade Holiday and Porzingis and we'll be fine. It's okay. And I'm like, are you sure? Because even if you get all of that done, you're going to have, you might have to use all your draft capital to get that stuff done.
Is there a case that trading Jaylen Brown now is the move?
Yes. I made this case for the Ringer a month ago.
It's a good piece. Go read it.
And I said, you could either, it's going to, because again, people are like, oh yeah, somebody's going to want Porzingis. You have to clear so much money. Unless the Celtics are just cool with being a first apron team for a year while not competing, which maybe they are. But if they're trying to get out of the tax altogether, then they have to trade Holiday and Porzingis and Hauser while taking very little money back. And that's really hard to do without including basically all of your draft capital to just salary dump.
And there's there's not salary cap in the league right now.
Right, Brooklyn's the only one, and Brooklyn, I don't think like they're going to be involved in Durant trade rumors and all this stuff. Like Brooklyn holds a lot of cards right now.
And if you want to like, let's just like rent out their cap space for Porzingis, that's gonna 2 picks.
It's going to cost you a lot again because they're going to be able to negotiate against all the other teams trying to dump money there.
Yeah.
So, if you're Boston, would you rather have Tatum, Brown, and Derek White, but not very much depth going into the year Tatum comes back? So not this season, but the following season, and no draft picks, basically, or no very little draft capital, or would you just rather trade Brown, get a lot of stuff back because he's valuable, let Porzingis walk in a year, or trade him too or whatever, maybe trade Holiday somewhere, and then basically come back with a core of Jason Tatum, Derek White. You can keep Hauser, keep Pritchard, keep all those guys, and then whatever you got back for Jaylen Brown, plus a bunch of draft stuff to restock and reload around 27-year-old Jason Tatum. I think it's a fair question to ask. I don't know what the right answer is because Jaylen Brown is that important and that good to this team, but I think it's a fair one to ask.
I think it's also in the context of this summer, because I think all of this stuff is inherently contextual. In this world where it does not seem like Giannis, as of now, is a lock to be traded,
right?
Where there's going to teams are going to deplete. Mm-hmm. The logical next guy, I think, in this situation is Jaylen Brown to call for a bunch of picks. There's not a market for Trae Young. I don't think anyone thinks of him as that good at that level.
No, this is a good point.
There's not.
If you're the team that misses out on Durant or not interested in Durant or whatever, but still wants to make a big move, you probably call Boston and just say,
"There's no one else.
Here's a bunch of stuff for Jaylen Brown."
There's not another like star guy that I'm like pretty sure is gettable for a big offer that I'm excited about. Mm-hmm. Like that's if you look like the Ringer 100. Let's look at this real quick.
No, I mean Devin Booker. It sounds like he's going to sign that 2-year extension, but we'll see. TBD on that. Jaren Jackson Jr. isn't quite at the level that we're talking about.
No, like Jalen would be a bigger get. Like AD is not going anywhere. Kawhi's like none of these other guys in this range. Like Towns, the Ringer has Towns above Jaylen Brown right now. I think Jaylen Brown would feel like a bigger get as far as perimeter scorer guy.
Yeah,
there's no one else. Like it's Jaylen Brown. It's maybe your Jaren Jacksons, your Darius Garland, and I think those are probably unlikely. Mm-hmm. Cat, if they have to do something that involves his salary, and then after that, it's like Domantas Sabonis,
right,
who's good, but I think would be like a real contextual fit for need to be in the right situation.
Yep.
Porzingis with Sabonis actually would be. I think if I'm the Kings, I might talk myself into that if I couldn't get a point guard and just say F it. It's 1 year. I don't know. They're going to do something weird, I think, too.
Yeah, Sacramento's on my list of teams to watch.
All right. There we go. Celtics, big summer ahead, have rocketed up, I think, my intrigue level from where I was a month ago, Wes. We'll end there. We'll be back next week. What I will do, considering how important Game 4 is, I will go on TikTok. I will post a video to our TikTok page, just B-Ball fans. Give your reaction to the game. We'll post it on YouTube as a short. It'll be on Instagram as well. So some social content after Game 4. Full pod back early next week. I'm Chris Manning. That's Wes Goldberg. Shout out BetMGM. Use promo code JustBasketball when you sign up. Enjoy the hoops. We'll talk to you soon.